Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Today, I can't really tell you an awful lot about this battle without giving the game away. Suffice to say that we have Bird Hunter 95 in the USS North Carolina, Tier 8, US Navy battleship. This is a Tier 9 battle on the Islands of Ice map, and there are a fair number of Tier 9s in play. The enemy team have 2 Pommons. They also have 1 Alaska, a Fletcher and a Z-44, with the rest being made up with Tier 8s and 7s. But the North Carolina is a capable ship. It may not be top tier in this battle, but it's still a very decent battleship. And honestly, under these circumstances, this is probably the best possible matchmaking that Bird Hunter could have expected, because he's divisioned up with an Iowa, which is a Tier 9 battleship. I'm afraid I'm going to have to actually take a bit of a pause in commentating on and editing this battle, because this just happened. I never seem to get these problems with my dog, Boo. This, by the way, is Juicy, my Dutch ginger cat, and she's a bit simple. But she does just like to curl up next to her pappy, and I really don't have the heart to move her, so I'm going to bugger off and cook dinner, I think. Beef stroganoff. And hopefully by then Juicy will have moved on and I can actually get back to editing this commentary. And I'm back. She's finally decided to bugger off and stick her face in her feeding bowl. Speaking of which, dinner was fantastic. And thanks to the magic of video editing, we haven't actually missed anything. Wow, check out that dispersion. Lots and lots of horizontal dispersion, not an awful lot of vertical dispersion, which is ideally what you actually want in a battleship, particularly when you're firing at a broadside target, because it doesn't really matter if the shots go left and right, you're still going to hit something. If the shots go long or short, that's when you're going to miss. I don't know what skill build Bird Hunter is running with. It could be a Deadeye build. And it's another symptom of Wargaming's bizarre insistence on sticking with percentage-based modifiers. With something like Deadeye that improves your accuracy by 10%, if your accuracy is terrible to begin with, 10% more terrible is still terrible. On the other hand, if your accuracy is good, as is the case with the North Carolina, something that's already good simply becomes borderline overpowered. The ships that actually need the Deadeye skill most, bizarrely enough, are the ones that benefit the least from it. But I guess it's just a lot easier to slap a simple percentage buff on something than it is to make it work for the ships that would benefit the most from it. While we're on the subject of the Commander skill rework, because it has been generating a fair amount of controversy, and I'm not just talking about the actual skills themselves, but also the system whereby you can theoretically have one captain for every ship of a particular nation, simply selecting destroyer skills when you put the captain on a destroyer, cruiser skills when you put them on a cruiser, and so on and so on. If you're prepared to pay the price of a Tier 3 premium warship every time you move him from one ship to another, except for premium ships. Great idea in theory. Unfortunately, you rarely get something for nothing in what is increasingly hysterically being called the free-to-play game market. However, I don't know if you've been keeping track of what's been going on in World of Tanks on their sandbox server, where they're also fiddling around with crew skill mechanics. They have something that is very, very similar, but different in just a couple of strategic ways. What's going on over there is that you can, for example, take the best crew that you have on Russian tanks and then qualify that crew on every single Russian tank, tank destroyer and artillery that you own. If you're prepared to pay for the price of a Tier 3 or 4 premium tank every time you exercise the privilege. The difference in World of Tanks, unlike in World of Warships, is that as the crews move around, they don't lose the qualifications. You get to keep them. So once you qualify the crew on one tank, you can then qualify them on another tank, and they still retain the qualification on the first tank, so they can be swapped between those tanks at will and with no penalty. Here in World of Warships, you move a captain from one ship to another, you retrain them on the new ship, they lose the qualification on the old ship. I'm not entirely sure whether or not World of Tanks has it better or worse. One thing that I am very sure of is that if this change does go ahead and World of Tanks as planned, then Wargaming are going to be making money faster than they can possibly spend it, as people very understandably line up to throw money at Wargaming in order to get the best crews that they possibly can into as many of their tanks as they possibly can, because why would you not want to be going into battle with the best crew? It's as if the World of Tanks team took a look at the World of Warships team's commander skill rework and thought, yeah, I see what you're doing there, but I think you've missed an opportunity to make some coin. And to be honest, I'm not really sure which system is better, World of Warships or World of Tanks, because the system in World of Warships is just so meh. I mean, sure, it would be great in World of Warships to have your best British captain on all of your British ships, and your best American captain on all of your American ships. But unless you're just playing that one British ship or that one American ship, or, you know, whatever the nationality happens to be, over and over and over again, you have to hand over cash in order to move that captain from one ship to another without penalty. As it is, the system is just so shit that I'm never going to use it. And I'm absolutely fine with that. On the other hand, the system in World of Tanks, while equally expensive, at least offers a lasting benefit. You get to keep the qualifications that you've paid for. And I might actually be tempted to spend money on that. And I'm not honestly sure whether or not that's a good or a bad thing. But I am pretty sure that the World of Warships team definitely missed a trick that the World of Tanks team didn't. And that's quite surprising, because it's normally the other way around. Anyway, I guess time will tell. So what's going on in this battle? Not an awful lot. Oh, the team have just lost another ship. Awesome. One battleship, one cruiser, one destroyer for the price of one enemy battleship. The enemy team are the only team in possession of any of the caps. Oh, come on. Broadside Chapayev. Come on, do it. Do it. Yes! That's why people play battleships. I mean, you can score citadels in anything, but you only get the big chonky numbers like that in a battleship. Oh, and the team's Leningrad has also managed to sink the enemy Jervis, so that's one battleship, one cruiser, and one destroyer per team. And that Leningrad, by the way, along with the friendly Scharnhorst, are the only things preventing the enemy team from flipping that capture point at A to go with the capture point at B that they currently control. Actually, if we're being completely fair, the team's destroyers as a whole are doing pretty well here. The friendly Fletcher has just nailed the enemy Fletcher, and the Leningrad, which is only tier 7, has just made short work of the enemy Z-44, which is tier 9. And so for the first time in this battle, the team are actually ahead on points, and they're starting to flip capture point Charlie. Unfortunately, as we all know by now, you should never underestimate a team's ability to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The team's Oyster Yachtland has just died, as has the Scharnhorst, which means the enemy team are now again ahead on points and now actually control 2 of the caps, instead of just controlling one and contesting another. The cap at Charlie that was being flipped by the Fletcher is no longer being flipped by the Fletcher. He's seen what's approaching from the north and is very wisely getting the hell out of there. His position in the cap circle has been taken, bizarrely, by a Minnesota, the tier 9 standard pattern US Navy battleship. I'm not entirely sure what the Minnesota thinks he's going to achieve in there, other than, you know, getting stuck, because with that lot bearing down on him from the north, there's no way he's getting out of there, and in fact it doesn't matter, he's been sunk already. Which now means that with no points coming in from caps, Bird Hunter's team are down to less than 200 points, with the enemy team rapidly approaching 500. Fortunately, that Leningrad is at it again, finished off the Pommern with a fire, although to be completely fair here, if the Leningrad hadn't done it, Bird Hunter would have. And that's put the team up to just over 200 points. The good news is that with the destruction of the Pommern, they're now in a position to start flipping their first cap. The bad news is that with the Fletcher buggering off and the Minnesota suiciding in Capture Circle Charlie, the enemy team are now flipping Charlie as well. Bird Hunter, assisting in the capture of Point Alpha over here, was getting shot up by the high explosive shells from that Duke of York over there, very wisely holding his fire and waiting until this capture point has been flipped before revealing his position again. And we're done. The team now have a capture point of their very own. They will love it and keep it and call it Bob. Or perhaps not. Bird Hunter, now no longer on fire, unloads at the enemy Alaska. Didn't quite give enough lead, but managed to score a Citadel anyway. If he'd been correctly able to anticipate just how fast that Alaska was going, I'm pretty sure that would have been a kill. But hey, damage is damage. Kills would be better though. The enemy team are still 1 kill up, 300 points up and 2 cap circles up. So yeah, kills please. Hopefully that means we'll see the end of that enemy Alaska as he decides to turn. Come on. He's gone undetected. And those shots went... yeah, hits. Sadly not a kill. Okay, the friendly Talon, who has radar, has managed to park up behind an... okay, so he's just been killed by the Duke of York. So much for the middle map, radar position. And once again, Bird Hunter's team are down to less than 200 points. With the enemy team stretching their lead to 2 ships and nearly 400 points. That Duke of York is proven to be a royal pain in the arse. Now he's been shot at by the Leningrad from the concealment of the smokescreen over there. Bird Hunter's fired off a salvo of his own, and the Duke of York becomes visible again when it returns fire. Meanwhile, do you see those torpedoes off in the distance? Yeah, the friendly Fletcher didn't see them, or he didn't see them in time. The team are now down to 3 ships. The enemy team have a 500 point lead, and 2 of the 3 caps. Aside from Bird Hunter's North Carolina and the Leningrad, the only other surviving enemy ship, the Vittorio Veneto, is all the way on the other side of the map. And whereas just a couple of minutes ago the team had a great opportunity, despite being behind, to close in on the enemy ships from 2 different directions and catch them in a devastating crossfire, that opportunity has unfortunately pretty much been squandered. Or has it? Because it appears that the enemy team are all playing chasey chasey, catchy catchy, kissy kissy with the Vittorio Veneto on the far side of the map, and presenting perfect broadsides for Bird Hunter to shoot at in the process. And Bird Hunter is not one to look a gift horse in the mouth, as he bitch slaps the enemy North Carolina, who fortunately for Bird Hunter, because he is giving broadside to them as well, had just fired at and missed the Leningrad. The Leningrad, and I really can't say enough good things about this Leningrad player. Remember, this is a tier 9 battle and he is just a tier 7 destroyer, taking advantage of his insane speed to kite these enemy oh shit, okay. Finally, the team are back above 200 points. And the Vittorio Veneto, bless him, is contesting Cap Circle Charlie. And that is proving to be quite significant, because he's being enough of a pain in the arse that he's forcing the enemy team to dilute their efforts and deal with him. Can we finish off this North Carolina? I mean, obviously we can, but are we? And RNGesus says, nope, not this time. To be fair, at that kind of range, he did a perfectly respectable amount of damage. And the Vittorio Veneto's managed to get a kill. And thanks to that, the team, for the first time in 10 minutes, now know what it's like to actually have more than 300 points to their name. Spot a plane up, get a better view of the North Carolina, who is so anxious to avoid getting shot at by the Leningrad's piffling little guns that he's managed to run himself aground. The Vittorio Veneto, dodging torpedoes like a boss, has actually managed to get himself another kill. And those 2 kills from the Vittorio Veneto, first the Alaska and then the Akatsuki, are fantastic news for everybody. I mean, great news for the Vittorio Veneto because he no longer has to worry about getting torpedoed. But also fantastic news for the Leningrad, because with the destruction of the Alaska, the enemy team no longer have any radar either, and he's not going to be outspotted by a Japanese destroyer that has vastly better concealment. Meanwhile, the North Carolina's managed to get himself off the rocks and is turning in order to avoid driving himself onto the rocks again, which means we finally have the opportunity to get those multiple citadels that we really would like, and RNGesus once again says, nope, sorry, not today. However, the Leningrad, from the safety of the smokescreen over there, is still beaten down on him with his high explosive. And he's managed to sink him with a fire. And the Vittorio Veneto takes out the Charles Martel. Sadly, the Vittorio Veneto's rampage is about to come to a sticky end. I mean, he's done just about everything he could possibly be expected to do, but there was no way he was going to survive to finish off the Massachusetts as well, other than by ramming him. And the Massachusetts wasn't having any of that. There's less than 5 minutes of this match remaining. The enemy team still have 2 of the caps, and they're still 200 points ahead. Bird Hunter tells the Leningrad, you spot that Massachusetts and contest Capture Point Charlie, and I'll take the middle cap at Bravo. The Leningrad doesn't argue. It's obviously the best thing to do. Now, I realise it seems so obvious when you say it like that. And it is the best thing to do. Because if that Massachusetts has any sense, he's just going to try to run out the clock. But knowing what the best thing to do is, and trying to get your teammates to cooperate, are 2 entirely different things. The Vittorio Veneto, as you can see in chat there, isn't convinced that it's going to be enough. And to be fair, it might not. That Leningrad's going to have to be very careful. He very wisely took that island ahead wide in order to get view of the Massachusetts, because even in a destroyer, the last thing you want to do is suddenly and unexpectedly come across a Massachusetts at point-blank range. Of course, that kind of situation is equally dangerous for the Massachusetts, and he doesn't want to unexpectedly run into any destroyers around the sides of islands at point-blank range either, especially not when you're the last ship left alive in your team and you absolutely cannot afford to die. Which means the Massachusetts is sticking to open water. The other thing that the Massachusetts is doing is, again, quite wisely, under the circumstances, abandoning the capture point at Charlie, which means it's wide open for the Leningrad to sneak in there, once the Massachusetts is safely far enough away. And with Bird Hunter about to finish flipping the central cap here at Bravo, and the Leningrad now having slipped over the border into the eastern cap at Charlie, the enemy team no longer have any points coming in. That's the good news. The bad news is they are still 200 points ahead. That didn't kill him, and there's only 2 minutes of this game left. Now, there's a mod that I sometimes run, although I haven't reinstalled the official World of Warships mod pack since upgrading to the latest patch, so it's not actually running in this battle. You might have seen it before. It represents the amount of time remaining for either team to win based on how many ships are left alive, what the current point score is, and how many caps are currently under control. So under normal circumstances, if I'd bothered to update my official World of Warships mod pack after the latest patch, I would right now be able to tell you exactly, based on the fact that Bird Hunter's team now control all 3 of the caps, but they are 130 points behind, and there's barely a minute of this battle remaining. If I had that mod installed, you would be able to look at the top of the screen next to the scores, and it would tell you exactly how long it was going to take for Bird Hunter and the Leningrad to win, or not, in the 1 minute of this game that remains. But I do not have that mod installed. So I am as much in the dark as you are. Bird Hunter seems convinced that they've got it. He's telling the Leningrad, and again, the Leningrad isn't arguing, just stay alive. Just stay alive, and with 3 caps, we are going to win on points. Still, it would be nice to know what that Massachusetts is doing, because it looked like, when he was last seen, he was turning around to come back and contest Capture Point Charlie. And of course, if he does that, the team will not have points coming in from 3 caps, because one of them will be contested. So what's going to happen? 10 seconds to go. With 8 seconds to go, the Massachusetts starts contesting the cap. And then with 4 seconds to go, Birdhunter's team equalise on 697 points. The question is, are 4 seconds enough for another tick of points to come in for this match to not end in a draw? And the answer to that question would be yes. But only just. A win by the narrowest of margins. Of course, it wouldn't have been possible if the enemy team hadn't started to throw even harder than Birdhunter's team were already trying to. But you also have to give the lion's share of the credit to Birdhunter in the North Carolina and Leningrad, who must have been sweating bullets in the last 10 seconds of this battle. But they held their nerve and proved once again, although they cut it bloody close this time, that when you're winning, there's absolutely no reason to win any harder than you already are. Hope you enjoyed that one, folks. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.